When I first set foot on Antarctica, the world was still alive. At least, that's what I believed. The wind hit me like a wall the moment I stepped off the transport plane. It wasn't just cold. It was violent. The kind of cold that bites through your clothes, through your skin, straight into your bones. The kind that reminds you instantly, you don't belong here. The research station stood alone in the endless white, a metal box surrounded by nothing but ice, wind, and silence. No trees, no life, just frozen emptiness stretching beyond the horizon. I was supposed to be here for 6 months. A routine assignment, maintenance work, keep the systems running, monitor equipment, survive the winter, then go home. Simple, at least, it was supposed to be. Inside the station, things felt different. Warmer, controlled, the hum of generators, the glow of screens, the comfort of artificial heat. It felt like a small piece of civilization dropped into the most hostile place on Earth. There were 6 of us. Engineers, scientists, 1 medic. We joked, we laughed, we complained about the cold like it was just another inconvenience. Something temporary. But that night, everything changed. The first sign was the radio. Static. At first, no one thought much of it. Communication outages happen all the time here. Solar interference, storms, equipment glitches. But this was different. No signal, no emergency channel, nothing. Then came the second sign. The last transmission. It broke through the static for just a few seconds. A voice, panicked, distorted, barely human anymore. If anyone can hear this, it's spreading, cities are gone. Don't. And then silence. Permanent silence. We stood there, frozen, not from the cold this time, but from something far worse. Fear. At first, we tried to stay rational. System failure, miscommunication, maybe even a drill. But deep down, we all felt it. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Over the next 48 hours, everything fell apart. No incoming flights. No outgoing flights. No satellites. No contact with any other station. It was like the entire world had just disappeared. One by one, the others started to panic. Arguments broke out. Plans were made, then abandoned. Some wanted to leave, to try crossing the ice, thousands of kilometers of frozen death, to reach civilization. But there was no civilization left to reach. I knew it, even if they didn't want to admit it. By the end of the week, I was alone. Some left, some didn't make it, and some, I never found. Now it's just me, and the silence. Out here, there are no zombies chasing you. No screaming crowds. No burning cities. Just wind. Endless, unforgiving wind. And the kind of isolation that slowly eats away at your mind. I don't know what happened to the world. I don't know if anyone else is alive. But I know one thing. If I want to survive, I have to become something this place understands. Cold, silent, unbreakable. This is day 1. And if I'm going to make it to day 365, I'll have to fight not just the cold, but myself. The storm didn't arrive like something natural. It felt personal. I saw it coming hours before it hit. A dark wall on the horizon, swallowing the pale sky. In Antarctica, you learn quickly, when the horizon disappears, you don't wait. You prepare, or you die. The wind started low, a distant howl. By the time I sealed the last exterior hatch, it was screaming. Inside the station, everything vibrated. Metal walls groaned like they were alive, fighting against the pressure. The windows turned white in seconds, completely buried by snow driven sideways at impossible speeds. I checked the readings. Wind speeds over 200 kilometers per hour. Temperature dropping fast. Too fast. This wasn't just a storm. This was Antarctica reminding me who's in control. I moved quickly, going through every system one more time. Generators, stable. Backup power, ready. Heating, barely holding. Fuel levels, lower than I liked. That was the first real problem. Fuel meant heat. Heat meant survival. And now, every hour this storm lasted, I was burning through it. The lights flickered, just once, but that was enough to make my heart slam into my chest. Not now, I muttered under my breath. I grabbed my flashlight and headed for the generator room. The corridor felt longer than usual, darker somehow, even though the lights were still on. The noise of the storm echoed through the metal like distant explosions. Every step reminded me of one thing. If something breaks, no one is coming. The generator room was hot, loud, and smelled like oil and metal. I checked the main unit, still running, but struggling. The pressure gauges were fluctuating. Not good. Snow buildup outside must have been blocking airflow. Which meant only one thing. I had to go outside. I stood there for a moment, staring at the door. Out there, the storm was strong enough to rip a person off their feet. Strong enough to erase you in seconds. But staying inside and doing nothing, that was just a slower death. I suited up. Layer after layer. Thermal gear, mask, goggles, gloves thick enough to barely move my fingers. By the time I was ready, I could hardly feel my own body. I opened the outer hatch. The wind hit me like a truck. I couldn't see more than a few meters ahead. Just white chaos. Snow blasting into me so hard it felt like needles against my skin. I stepped out anyway. One step, then another. Each movement was a fight. The wind pushed, pulled, tried to knock me down. I grabbed onto the guide rope attached to the station. Without it, I would have been gone in seconds. The generator exhaust vent was completely buried. I dropped to my knees and started digging with my hands. Fast, desperate. Snow filled my gloves, freezing instantly. My fingers went numb almost immediately. The wind howled louder, like it was angry I was still standing. Come on, I growled through clenched teeth. Finally, I cleared enough. The vent burst open with a blast of hot air. That was it, that small opening. The difference between life and death. I didn't wait. I turned and fought my way back, step by step, barely able to see, barely able to breathe. When I slammed the hatch shut behind me, the silence inside felt unreal. Like stepping into another world. I collapsed against the wall, ripping off my gloves. My hands were pale, shaking, alive, but just barely. The storm continued outside, raging without mercy. And that's when I understood something. Out there are no second chances. No mistakes. No mercy. If I want to survive 365 days in this place, I can't just endure it. I have to respect it. Because Antarctica doesn't care if you live or die. The storm finally passed, but it didn't leave quietly. It left damage. I stepped outside for the first time in days, and the world looked different. The station was half buried in snow, like it was being slowly swallowed by the ice. Drifts reached up to the windows. The sky was clear again, but the cold felt sharper, like the storm had stripped away anything soft. This place was reminding me, survival isn't just about getting through the moment. It's about what comes after. I started with a full inspection. The solar panels were gone, completely buried. Not that they helped much this far south, but still, one less backup. The antenna was bent, twisted like it had been made of plastic instead of steel. And the fuel reserves. That's where my stomach dropped. Lower than expected. Much lower. I went back inside and checked the logs again. The storm had forced the generators to work harder. More heat, more power, more fuel burned. Simple math. Dangerous result. I sat down at the main console and started calculating. Rations, fuel, water, days. Everything came down to numbers now. If I kept things running the way they were, I wouldn't make it to day 365. Not even close. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling. This is where people break. Not in the storm, not in the cold, but here, in the quiet. When you realize survival isn't guaranteed. It's negotiated. Every day, every decision. I stood up. Time to adapt. First, food. The storage room still had supplies, but they were meant for 6 people, rotating in and out. Not one man for a full year. I started reorganizing everything. Canned food, dry rations, emergency packs. I cut my portions immediately. Half meals. Strict schedule. No exceptions. Hunger is better than starvation. Second, fuel. I shut down everything non-essential. Lights in unused rooms, off. Secondary systems, off. Heating, reduced. That one hurt. The temperature inside the station dropped fast. Not enough to freeze me, but enough to make every breath visible. Enough to make sleeping uncomfortable. Good. Comfort is a luxury I can't afford anymore. Third, water. Melting ice sounds simple. It's not. It takes energy, time, fuel. Everything costs something here. So I started collecting clean snow, storing it in containers, planning melts carefully to avoid wasting heat. Nothing wasted, nothing taken for granted. By the end of the day, the station felt different. Colder, darker, quieter, more honest. That night, I sat alone in the mess hall, eating half a meal that barely filled the plate. The silence was heavier than before. No voices, no movement, just the low hum of the generator and the distant whisper of wind outside. I caught myself staring at the empty chairs. 6 of them. Now, just one. That's when it hit me. This isn't temporary anymore. This isn't a mission. This is life now. Every calorie matters. Every drop of fuel matters. Every decision matters. Because out here, there's no resupply. No rescue team. No second chance. Only what I have, and how long I can make it last. Day 18. The storm didn't kill me. But it took something else instead. The illusion that I was prepared. Now I know the truth. If I want to survive this year, I have to become more than careful. I have to become efficient, precise, relentless, because the real enemy out here isn't the cold, it's running out. I waited longer than I should have. Part of me didn't want to accept it. Every morning, I followed the same routine. Wake up, check the systems, then go straight to the communications room. And every morning, I hoped today would be different. Today, something would come through. A signal, a voice, anything. But today was like every other day. Static. I adjusted the frequency slowly, carefully, listening through the endless noise. The radio hissed and cracked, like it was trying to speak, but couldn't remember how. Come on, I whispered. Nothing. I switched channels. Emergency frequencies. Military bands. Old research station lines. Even civilian air traffic channels that should have been dead out here anyway. Still nothing. Just static. Endless. Empty static. I leaned closer, turning the volume up. Too loud. The sound filled the room, a constant rushing noise that made it feel like the air itself was breaking apart. And then, a sound. Faint. So faint I almost missed it. I froze. There it was again. Not static. Something else. A pattern. I grabbed the receiver, my heart racing for the first time in days. This is, I started, my voice rough from disuse. This is Antarctic Station Delta 9. If anyone can hear me, respond. Silence. Then, a crackle, a distorted sound, barely holding together. Low. My breath caught. Someone was there. I hear you, I said quickly, louder now. Repeat. Identify yourself. The signal flickered, breaking apart like it was being torn to pieces by the distance. Cold. So cold. There. The transmission cut out. Just like that. Gone. No. I adjusted the controls frantically, scanning the frequency again. Come back. I'm here. I can hear you. Static. Only static. I slammed my hand against the console. Hard. The sound echoed through the empty room. Gone. Whoever it was. Wherever they were. I lost them. I sat there for a long time, staring at the equipment. Waiting. Listening. Hoping it would come back. It didn't. Hours passed. The light outside faded into darkness again, but I didn't move. The radio stayed on, filling the room with that endless noise. Because turning it off would make it real. That moment, that voice. It changed something. Before, the silence meant uncertainty. Now, it meant something worse. Confirmation. There are others out there. Or, there were. And whatever is happening, it's not contained. It's everywhere. I finally stood up, my legs stiff, my mind racing. There. That's what the voice said. There. Not it. Not the cold. Not the storm. Something else. Something alive. Or at least, something moving. I turned off the radio. The silence that followed was heavier than ever. Because now I knew, the world didn't just disappear. Something took it. Day 32. I'm not alone. But that doesn't mean I'm safe. Out there, beyond the ice, something is still moving. And for the first time since I got here, I'm glad I'm trapped in Antarctica. Because whatever is left of the world, it sounds worse than this place. For a long time, I believed I was alone. Not just alone as in isolated. Alone as in the only living thing for thousands of kilometers. I was wrong. It started with tracks. I noticed them during a routine check outside the station. The wind had calmed, the sky clear, the kind of rare Antarctic day where everything looks almost peaceful. Too peaceful. That's when I saw them. Marks in the snow. Fresh. I froze instantly, my eyes scanning the area. They weren't human. Too irregular. Too wild. I crouched down, studying them carefully. The impressions were deep, pressed hard into the snow like whatever made them had weight behind it. Seals, maybe. Or penguins. That's what I told myself. Something normal. Something harmless. But deep down, it didn't feel right. I followed the tracks. Slowly. Carefully. Each step I took felt louder than it should have. Like I was disturbing something I wasn't supposed to find. They led away from the station, toward the ice field. And then I saw it. Movement. About 50 meters ahead. I stopped immediately. A shape. Low to the ground. Still. Watching. My breath slowed. Controlled. The goggles made it hard to see clearly, but I could make out enough to know. This wasn't a penguin. Too big. Too tense. Too aware. The wind shifted slightly, and for a second, the snow cleared just enough. Dark fur. Massive shoulders. A seal? No. Something larger. Stronger. It moved. Just a step. But that was enough. My body reacted before my mind did. I backed up slowly, keeping my eyes on it. Every instinct I had screamed one thing. Don't run. Running triggers the chase. I knew that. But knowing something, and feeling it, are two very different things. The animal tilted its head slightly, studying me. Curious. Calculating. Then it let out a low, deep sound. Not loud, but heavy. A warning. That's when I understood. This wasn't just some random encounter. This was its territory, and I had just walked into it. I raised my arms slightly, trying to make myself look bigger, like I'd seen in survival guides. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Easy," I muttered, my voice barely audible through the mask. Another step back. The creature didn't move forward. But it didn't leave either. It just watched, waiting. I kept moving. Slow, controlled. Every second felt like minutes. Until finally, I reached the guide rope. The station was just a few meters behind me now. Safety. If I could just. The wind picked up suddenly, blowing snow between us. For a moment, I lost sight of it. That was all it needed. A sudden movement. Fast. Too fast. It lunged forward. I didn't think. I turned and ran. The rope burned against my glove as I pulled myself forward, boots slipping on the ice. I could hear it behind me. Heavy, fast, closing the distance. Closer, closer. I slammed into the hatch, fumbling with the handle, my fingers barely working. Come on, come on. The door opened. I threw myself inside and slammed it shut just as something heavy hit the other side. Hard. The entire door shook. I stumbled back, breathing hard, staring at it. Another impact. Then silence. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Nothing. Slowly, I stepped forward and looked through the small reinforced window. Nothing there. Gone. Like it was never there at all. I backed away, my mind racing. Day 51. I'm not alone out here. Not even close. And whatever is surviving in this frozen hell, it's stronger than me, faster than me, and perfectly adapted to this place. Which means one thing. Out here, I'm not the predator, I'm the prey. I stopped counting hours a while ago. Days are easier. Days feel less real. The station doesn't feel like a shelter anymore. It feels like a cage. A metal box buried in endless white silence, holding me inside like something preserved. Or trapped. At first, I thought the hardest part would be the cold. I was wrong. The hardest part is the silence. No voices. No footsteps. No distant life. Just the constant hum of machines keeping me alive. And the sound of my own thoughts getting louder every day. It started small. A shadow in the corner of my vision. I turned. Nothing there. A sound behind me. I checked. Empty corridor. Normal things, I told myself. Stress. Isolation. The mind playing tricks. But then it got worse. I woke up one night and swore I heard someone walking outside my door. Slow steps. Measured. Like they knew I was listening. I grabbed a flashlight and opened the door. Nothing. Just empty hallway and flickering lights. But I didn't sleep after that. Not properly. Not deeply. And that's when it started to break. The line between memory and imagination began to blur. I'd sit in the mess hall and forget if I had already eaten. I'd walk into rooms and forget why I went there. Sometimes I'd hear voices in the radio even when it was off. Whispers. Fragments. Not clear enough to understand, but clear enough to feel like they were meant for me. One night, I saw someone standing at the far end of the corridor. I froze instantly. They didn't move. Just stood there. Watching. I called out. No response. I took a step forward. They didn't move. My breath was shaking now. Who's there? I said louder. The figure tilted its head slightly. And then, the lights flickered. Once. And when they came back, it was gone. I stood there for a long time, waiting for my mind to explain it away. But it didn't. Because deep down, I already knew. There was no one else in this station. There hadn't been for weeks. Maybe longer. That night, I sat in the dark and realized something terrifying. I can survive the cold. I can ration food. I can fight storms. I can even face whatever is outside. But I can't outrun my own mind. Because out here, isolation doesn't just take your comfort. It takes your grip on reality. I started talking to myself after that. At first just out loud thoughts. Then conversations. Then arguments. I don't remember when it stopped being a choice. Or when I started answering back. Day 68. I think I saw someone who wasn't there. Or maybe, I'm the one who isn't. The station is quieter now. Or maybe I just don't trust what I hear anymore. Either way, I've started locking doors I already know are closed. Checking rooms I already checked. And turning around too many times when I'm alone. Because now I understand something worse than starvation. Worse than the cold. Worse than whatever is outside. Sometimes, the enemy is what's left when everything else is gone. And right now, all that's left is me. The station is changing. Not physically, not yet. But I feel it in everything. The way the lights flicker longer than they used to. The way the generator sounds like it's breathing instead of running. The way every corridor feels slightly different depending on the time of day, even though time barely means anything here anymore. Or maybe that's just me. I try not to think about that part too much. Because thinking is dangerous now. After the breakdown, I stopped trusting my own mind completely. So I built rules. Simple ones. Strict ones. If I hear something, wait 10 seconds before reacting. If I see something, check it twice. If I feel fear, assume it's wrong. But even rules start to bend when survival gets harder. Fuel is running lower than I calculated. Food is still there, but I'm eating less than ever. Half rations turned into quarter rations without me even deciding it. My body adjusted faster than my mind approved. That scared me, because it meant survival was taking over. Not me, just survival. The heating system failed again yesterday. Not fully, but enough. Now parts of the station freeze at night. Water pipes crack slightly and then settle again, like bones adjusting in cold silence. I spent hours fixing what I could, but every repair feels temporary now. Everything here feels temporary, even me. So I started doing something I never thought I'd have to do. I began modifying the station. Not repairs. Adaptations. I sealed off entire sections to conserve heat. Closed corridors I don't need. Reduced my world to only what keeps me alive. Living space. Storage. Power room. Everything else became irrelevant. The station is smaller now. But safer, I think. Outside, the wind has changed again. It doesn't just howl anymore. It pauses sometimes, like it's listening. Like something out there is waiting for me to make a mistake. I don't go out unless I have to. And when I do, I move faster than before. Less hesitation, less thinking. Because thinking gets you killed here. I also started experimenting with resource use. Small things at first. Melting snow in controlled cycles to reduce fuel waste. Using insulated containers to store heat longer. Timing generator bursts instead of running them continuously. Then bigger decisions. I shut down the secondary lab completely. That hurt more than I expected. Because it meant giving up part of what this place used to be. What I used to be. Now it's just survival architecture. Cold efficiency. Nothing extra. But the hardest change wasn't physical. It was mental. I stopped waiting for rescue. Fully. Not as a thought. Not as hope. Just stopped. Because hope burns fuel too. And I can't afford it anymore. Still, sometimes at night, I sit in the dark mess hall and imagine footsteps outside the station. Not the creature. Not hallucinations. Just people. Real people. Knocking. Saying the world is fine. That everything is normal again. But every time I reach for that thought, I stop myself. Because believing it hurts more than the cold ever could. Day 84. I am no longer surviving day by day. I am surviving system by system. Resource by resource. Breath by breath. And the worst part, it's working. Which means I might actually live long enough to see what this place turns me into. Hope is dangerous. I learned that the hard way. For weeks, everything had become predictable. Wake up, check systems, melt snow, ration food, listen to silence, repeat. The world outside the station had stopped being a mystery. It became a threat I could measure. Wind speed, fuel levels, calories, temperature, everything reduced to numbers. And numbers don't lie. But then, something changed. It started with the antenna. The same one I thought was dead beyond repair. I had gone up to check it after a mild storm. Not because I expected anything. Just routine inspection. The kind of task that keeps your mind from collapsing in on itself. The sky was clear that day. Too clear. The kind of blue that feels unnatural after weeks of white storms and gray horizons. I climbed up carefully, harness secured, boots biting into the ice-covered metal structure. The wind was calm, almost gentle. That alone should have warned me. When I reached the top, I noticed something strange. The antenna cable, one of the main lines, was vibrating slightly. Not from wind, from signal interference. I froze. My breath slowed. I touched the panel, and there it was. A pulse. Weak, but real. I rushed back inside immediately, nearly slipping twice in my haste. My gloves were shaking when I powered up the communications system. At first, nothing. Then static. Then something different. A pattern. Not random noise. A structured signal. My heart started pounding before I even understood why. I adjusted the frequency. Waited. Listened. And then, a voice. Repeat. All remaining stations. Respond if operational. I nearly fell out of the chair. A human voice. Clear enough to be real. I grabbed the mic instantly. This is Delta 9. I read you. Repeat. I read you. Static. A pause. Then, Delta 9. Confirm status. How many survivors? My mouth went dry. Survivors. Plural. That word hit harder than anything I had experienced since this all began. I'm alone, I said. Station is intact. Supplies are low but stable. Location is Antarctica sector grid. The signal broke, faded, returned, then broke again, like the world itself was struggling to stay connected. And then came the second voice. Different channel. Closer. Urgent. This is Polar Relay Station. Do not transmit on open frequency. They are listening. I froze. My fingers tightened on the mic. No response. Just static. Then the first voice returned, weaker now. Delta 9. If you can hear this, do not trust open channels. Repeat. Do not trust open channels. We are being tracked. And then, silence. Complete silence. No static. No noise. Just gone. I sat there for a long time, staring at the console. My pulse was still racing, but my mind wasn't celebrating. It was analyzing, processing, breaking down every word. Survivors. Stations still operating. But also, they are listening. That sentence wouldn't leave my head. I turned off the system slowly. Very slowly. Like making noise could bring something closer. Hope had returned. But it didn't feel like rescue. It felt like bait. That night, I sat alone in the dark again. But this time it was different. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It felt aware. Like the station itself was listening with me. Day 103. I found proof I'm not alone. But now I'm starting to wonder if I ever really was. The storm didn't give warning this time. No slow build-up. No distant wall of darkness on the horizon. No calm before the chaos. It just arrived. One moment the station was quiet, stable, almost deceivingly peaceful. The next, the entire world outside turned into a screaming white void. The wind hit like a physical impact. The station shuddered. Lights flickered. Then emergency alarms started screaming through the corridors. I was already moving before my brain fully processed it. Systems check. Power check. Structural integrity. Everything at once. Not again, I muttered, pulling myself into the control room. The readings were wrong immediately. Wind sensors were maxed out. Temperature dropping too fast to stabilize. But what caught my attention wasn't the storm itself. It was the seismic reading. The ground was moving. At first, I thought it was a sensor error. Antarctica doesn't move like that. It's supposed to be stable, frozen, predictable, but the readings kept climbing. Low frequency shifts, ice shelf instability, and then, a deep, delayed vibration rolled through the station. Not wind, not impact, something underneath. I stopped, listened. The sound came again. A slow, hollow crack that traveled through the ice like something enormous stretching after a long sleep. The station lights dimmed for half a second. Backup systems kicked in instantly. I ran to the observation window. Outside was a blur of white violence. You couldn't see more than a few meters. But the ground, I could feel it. The station was tilting, slightly, not enough to collapse, but enough to notice. That's when I realized the truth. We weren't built on solid ground. We were built on ice. And ice moves. I grabbed my gear and moved fast. Emergency protocols weren't optional anymore. They were survival reflex. First priority, stabilize power. Second, secure fuel lines. Third, make sure the station doesn't tear itself apart. I reached the lower maintenance level when I saw the first real damage. A wall crack, thin at first, then spreading, slow, branching like a fracture in glass. I pressed my hand against it instinctively. Cold, deeper than cold, a structural warning. Something beneath us had shifted. Another crack echoed through the station. Closer this time. I grabbed sealant foam and started working immediately, spraying along the fracture line as it spread. My hands moved faster than my thoughts. Because thinking would have stopped me. And stopping meant freezing. The storm outside intensified again, as if reacting to the instability beneath us. The entire structure groaned. Metal against ice. Ice against ice. Nature against anything that tried to survive inside it. Then came the worst part. The floor dropped. Just slightly, but enough for me to lose balance. I slammed into the wall hard, catching myself before I went down further. My breath came sharp, immediate panic rising in my chest. The station wasn't just damaged. It was shifting. Hold together, I whispered. Just hold together. I rushed back to the core systems and rerouted power to emergency stabilizers. The system barely responded. Too much load. Too many failures at once. Outside, something massive cracked beneath the ice. A sound like thunder trapped underground. And then, silence. The storm didn't stop, but something changed in it. Like the world had opened its eyes underneath us. Hours passed like that. Fighting systems, reinforcing structure, holding the station together with improvisation and desperation. By the time it ended, I was sitting on the floor of the control room, back against the console, breathing heavily. Alive. The station, still standing. Barely. I looked at the readings again. The ice shelf had shifted. We were now closer to an unstable zone than ever before. If it happens again, there might not be a station left to repair. Day 118. The storm almost killed me. But what scares me more is that it didn't feel random. It felt like the ground itself is starting to break apart. And whatever is happening out there is getting closer. Something inside me changed after the storm. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but permanently. I noticed it in small ways at first. The way I stopped reacting to every sound. The way my body moved before my thoughts fully formed. The way silence no longer felt empty, just expected. The station is still damaged, repaired in places, held together in others, but it feels less like a building now and more like something I'm slowly turning into a living system. A machine for survival, and I'm just one of its parts. I started optimizing everything, not out of choice anymore, out of necessity. Food first. I recalculated everything I had left. Not in days, in calories, in survival units. Each meal became exact, measured, controlled. No waste, no variation. My body started adapting to it faster than I expected. Hunger stopped being pain. It became background noise. Fuel was next. The generators now run in cycles I designed myself. Short bursts of energy instead of continuous output. Enough to maintain heat in critical zones only. The rest of the station is permanently cold now. Frozen corridors. Silent rooms. Spaces that no longer matter. Water is harvested only at specific times of day. Ice melted in carefully controlled batches. Heat reused wherever possible. Nothing is allowed to escape without purpose. Everything has a function. Everything has a cost. Even me. Outside, the Antarctic wind feels different now. Not stronger, not weaker, just familiar. Like a presence I've learned to live beside. I don't fear going out anymore. I respect it. There's a difference. One keeps you alive, the other gets you killed. I've also started mapping the surrounding terrain again. Carefully. Not for exploration, for understanding. I need to know how far I can go if the station becomes uninhabitable. Escape routes. Ice stability zones. Shelter points. Not hope, just options. Options are survival. I found something during one of those checks. A buried structure. Not natural. Not station related. Partially exposed after the last storm shifted the ice. I didn't go inside. Not yet. I marked it and returned immediately. Because curiosity is expensive here. And I can't afford anything that doesn't guarantee survival. But I haven't stopped thinking about it. Of course I haven't. At night, I sit in the control room with the lights dimmed low, watching system logs scroll endlessly. The station breathes differently now. Less like a place, more like a body, my body, and I am learning its rhythm. When it needs heat, when it needs silence, when it needs sacrifice. Day 141. I no longer ask if I can survive here. That question is gone. Now I only ask one thing. What do I need to remove? To keep going one more day. And slowly, I'm running out of things to cut. I went back to the structure. Not because I wanted to. Because I had to. It stayed in my mind like a fracture that wouldn't heal. Every time I tried to focus on systems, fuel, or survival routines, I saw it again, half buried in ice, unnatural, waiting. So I prepared carefully. Full suit, rations for 24 hours. Emergency beacon, tools, rope, backup power pack. No risks, no improvisation, just procedure. The walk took longer than expected. The storm damage had reshaped the landscape again. Familiar landmarks were gone, replaced by uneven ice ridges and deep snow trenches that swallowed my boots with every step. The world out here doesn't stay still. Nothing does. After nearly an hour, I saw it again. The structure, closer now, clearer. It wasn't large, but it didn't feel small either. It was partially embedded in the ice, angled downward like it had been forced beneath the surface rather than built into it. Metal edges, dark and smooth, too clean compared to everything around it. Not rusted, not weathered, preserved. I circled it slowly. No markings I recognized, no logos, no flags, nothing human in a way I could understand. Just geometry, sharp lines, interlocking panels, a design that didn't feel like it belonged in nature, or even in human engineering. I checked for movement. Nothing. No heat signatures. No sound except wind. I marked the entrance. A seam in the structure that looked like a hatch, partially sealed with ice. Then I waited. For what? I don't know. When nothing changed, I made a decision. I opened it. Carefully. Slowly. The ice seal cracked with a sound like breaking glass under pressure. Inside was darkness. Not the natural kind. The kind that feels intentional. I activated my light and stepped forward. The air inside was colder than outside. That alone made no sense. Metal walls lined the corridor. Smooth, almost polished. No dust, no decay. As if time didn't apply here. I moved deeper. Every step echoed too cleanly. Too perfectly. Then I saw the first symbol. Not written. Embedded. Etched into the wall like it was part of the material itself. I didn't recognize it, but my brain reacted to it anyway. Uncomfortably. Like something in me understood it before I did. The corridor led to a central chamber. Empty. Except for one thing. A console. Still powered. That shouldn't have been possible. I approached slowly. My gloves felt heavier with every step. The screen flickered as I got closer. Then it turned on. No boot sequence. No delay. Like it was waiting for me. A single line of text appeared. Observation node active. I stepped back instinctively. The system responded immediately. New text. Subject detected. My breath stopped. I looked around the room again. No movement. No visible cameras. No sound. Just that screen. Watching. I tried to disconnect power. No response. Tried manual shutdown. Blocked. Then the final line appeared. Welcome back. I froze. My mind went completely still for a moment. Because I understood something I didn't want to understand. This place wasn't abandoned. It wasn't ancient. It wasn't random. It was active. And somehow, it already knew I would come here. Day 167. I came looking for answers. But I think I just got classified. I should have left that structure alone. Not because of fear, because of exposure. It started subtly. Too subtly to notice at first. A slight headache that didn't go away. A strange pressure behind my eyes after returning from the observation node. I blamed fatigue, cold exposure, stress, all the usual explanations a mind gives itself when it refuses to accept something unknown. But the station felt different after that day. Not physically, atmospherically, like something invisible had followed me back. Day 195. The headaches got worse. Then came the fever. That was the first real warning sign I couldn't ignore. Fever in Antarctica is wrong on a fundamental level. The body doesn't warm up easily here. It fights to stay cold, to conserve energy. But mine didn't follow that rule. I woke up sweating inside thermal layers. Shaking, breathing too fast. I checked my vitals. Elevated heart rate. Inflammation markers rising. But there's no clinic here anymore. No backup. No second opinion. Just me. And whatever I can do to keep myself alive. I tried to continue normal routines. Failed. Simple tasks became exhausting. Carrying fuel canisters felt like lifting dead weight. Even walking through the corridors made my vision blur at the edges. Then came the injury. Day 198. A slip. That's all it took. Ice had formed near the maintenance stairs overnight, thin, almost invisible. I missed it for half a second. Half a second is enough. I fell hard against the metal railing. My shoulder took the impact first, followed by my arm twisting unnaturally under my weight. I heard the sound before I felt the pain. A dull, internal crack. Not loud, but final. I didn't scream. Not because I was strong. Because there was no one to hear it. I dragged myself to the medical bay using one arm, vision fading in and out as the fever spiked again. The station lights felt too bright, too sharp. I locked the door behind me, then sat on the floor for a long time, assessing damage, likely dislocation or fracture, fever, worsening, mobility, reduced by half, survival probability, dropping. I opened the medical cabinet. Minimal supplies left, painkillers, basic antibiotics, old trauma kit, nothing advanced, nothing enough. I had to treat myself. That was the moment it became real in a different way. Not survival against the environment, but survival against degradation, against the body itself failing in isolation. I set the shoulder myself. It took longer than anything I've ever done. Longer than storms. Longer than hunger. Longer than fear. Because pain in isolation doesn't have urgency. It has permanence. When it was done, I sat still for a long time afterward, shaking uncontrollably. The fever made everything feel distant, like I was watching myself from outside my own body. And in that distance, I started hearing things again. Whispers. Not from the radio this time. Not from outside. Inside. Faint, structured patterns in my thoughts that didn't feel like mine. I wrote everything down immediately. Symptoms. Timing. Exposure to the structure. Possible contamination. Psychological degradation. But the more I wrote, the less certain I became that I was the one writing it. Day 192 to 198. I entered the structure. Now my body is breaking. And my mind is starting to follow it. One conclusion keeps repeating itself, no matter how many times I try to reject it. Whatever observation node means. I don't think I was meant to leave it unchanged. Something changed in me, not like recovery, not like healing, more like alignment. The fever didn't fully disappear. It lingered in waves, sometimes gone for hours, sometimes returning without warning. But something else came with it. Clarity, sharp, unnatural, almost too precise. The pain in my shoulder became background noise. My body adapted in ways it shouldn't have. Even sleep changed. I stopped dreaming the way I used to. No more chaos, no more fragments. Just silence, clean silence. And in that silence, I started noticing patterns. The station systems weren't just systems anymore. They felt responsive, predictive, like they were anticipating my actions before I took them. At first I thought it was paranoia returning. But it wasn't fear. It was observation. Day 220. I tested it. I made a decision I wouldn't normally make. Turning on a secondary power circuit I had previously shut down completely. Something I knew would trigger a system response if monitoring was active. And it did. Instantly. Before I even finished the activation sequence, the station adjusted power distribution automatically. As if it already knew what I was going to do and prepared for it. I stood there, staring at the console. That shouldn't be possible, unless something was watching. Not cameras, not sensors, something deeper, something integrated. That was the moment I stopped thinking of the station as a shelter. And started thinking of it as part of something larger. Day 227. The thoughts in my mind became quieter. Not gone. Just organized. Like something was filtering them. Removing noise. Leaving only what was necessary. Survival decisions became easier, faster, almost automatic. I could look at a situation and immediately know the outcome paths. Like I was seeing probabilities instead of choices. It should have terrified me. Instead, it felt efficient. That's what scared me most. Efficiency felt better than fear. Day 233. I went back to the structure. Not because I was curious. Because I felt drawn to it. The path there was easier than before. Almost like the environment itself was guiding me through safer routes. Wind patterns shifted just enough. Ice stability held just long enough. Coincidence after coincidence. Too many to ignore. Inside the structure, the console was still active. Still waiting. Same message. Observation node active. But this time, something new appeared beneath it. A second line. Not English. Not any language I know. But my mind translated it anyway. Integration progress. 12%. I stepped back immediately. My breathing stayed calm. Too calm. That's when I realized something terrifying. I wasn't reacting the way I should. Fear should have hit. Panic should have followed. Instead, analysis came first. Always. Like something was prioritizing logic over emotion. As I backed out of the structure, the wind outside felt different again. Not hostile. Not cold. Just present. Like it was no longer trying to kill me. Just observing me move through it. Day 214 to 233. I started surviving better than ever. Stronger. Faster. Clearer. But I don't know if I'm adapting to Antarctica. Or if Antarctica is finally finishing what that structure started. Because one truth is becoming harder to ignore every day. I'm not the same person who arrived here. And I don't think I'm the only thing changing anymore. I almost missed it. At first, it sounded like the usual static. That endless, familiar noise that fills the station's silence like white noise in a dead world. But there was something inside it this time. A rhythm. Not random. Not broken. Structured. I stopped everything I was doing and sat down at the communications console. My hands moved before I even decided to use it. Frequency scan. Narrow band sweep. Lock. The signal sharpened. Still distorted, but alive. Then came a voice. Repeat. All surviving Antarctic relay points. Confirm status. My breath slowed. Not fear. Not hope. Just focus. I adjusted the gain. The voice came clearer. This is North Polar Coordination. Repeat. Global network re-established in limited zones. Global network. Those words should have meant everything. They didn't. Because I didn't feel relief. I felt distance. Like I was hearing something from a world I no longer belonged to. I keyed the mic. This is Delta 9. I read you. Confirming station operational. Request status of global conditions. Silence. Then, Delta 9. Confirm isolation duration. I hesitated. Unknown. Estimated over 200 days without contact. A pause. Longer this time. Then the reply. That is impossible. All known Antarctic stations were evacuated or lost within the first collapse phase. My grip tightened. Negative. I am still here. More silence. Then another voice cut in, sharper. This is impossible. Delta 9 is listed as non-operational. Repeat. Non-operational. I looked at the screen. The same screen that once said welcome back. Something in me went cold. Not fear. Recognition. I switched frequencies again. Another channel. Faint. Weak. But real. A second transmission broke through. If anyone is hearing this from deep south stations, do not trust central coordination signals. Repeat. Do not trust them. The system is compromised. My heart rate didn't spike. It stabilized. That's what scared me. Two voices. Two truths. both contradicting each other, both claiming authority, both warning me about the other, and neither asking how I survived. I looked out the station window. The Antarctic horizon was calm today. Too calm. The wind barely moved the snow. Like the world was waiting for me to choose a side. Day 271. The outside world is still there. But it doesn't feel like a rescue anymore. It feels like a conflict I never agreed to enter. Later that night, I found something else. A faint directional beacon buried in the noise. Not from orbit, not from known systems. It was coming from inland. From deep within the ice. And for the first time in months, I felt something I almost forgot. Movement, purpose, direction. But it wasn't hope. Not really. It felt like being pulled. And I can't tell anymore if I'm being guided back to humanity. Or deeper into whatever started all of this. I made it. 1 full year in Antarctica. At least, that's what I tell myself. Because time doesn't feel like it used to anymore. Days stopped being numbers and started becoming states of mind. Cold, survival, adaptation, silence, change. And now, something else. Departure. The beacon grew stronger over the last weeks. Not louder, clearer. It wasn't random anymore. It wasn't background noise buried in static. It was structured, intentional, and constant, like something waiting for me to accept it. Every time I tried to ignore it, I felt it more. Not in my ears, in my decisions, in my thoughts. The station systems began behaving differently again. Not malfunctioning, not failing, preparing. Fuel redistribution happened without input. Power reserves were optimized beyond my own configurations. Even the old cracks in the structure seemed stabilized, as if the station itself was preparing for movement or release. I stood at the edge of the observation window for a long time that final day. Outside, Antarctica looked the same as it always did. Endless white, silent horizon. No sign of the world I once knew. No sign of the world I left behind. But I don't think that world exists anymore. Not in the way I remember it. I packed what little I still considered necessary. Most of it felt symbolic rather than practical now. Tools, notes, a functioning radio, emergency supplies I wasn't sure I even needed anymore. Survival had stopped being the question. Now it was direction. The beacon pulled me southeast of the station, deeper into the ice fields, toward the origin point, toward the structure's network. I didn't rush. I didn't hesitate. That's what surprised me most. No fear, no hope, just movement. Before leaving, I walked through every corridor one last time. The empty rooms didn't feel empty anymore. They felt completed, like their purpose had been fulfilled. I stopped in the control room. The same room where everything began to fall apart. The radio was still there. Silent now. Or maybe I just couldn't hear it anymore. I placed my hand on the console. The screen flickered one last time. Not error. Not static. A final message appeared. Integration complete. Subject stable. I stared at it for a long time. Then turned it off. For the first time in a year, I stepped outside without hesitation. The cold hit me like it always does. But I didn't resist it anymore. I moved with it. The snow didn't slow me down. It guided me. Every step away from the station felt less like leaving safety, and more like returning to something I had already begun to become part of. Hours later, I reached the beacon's origin point. A wide expanse of ice fractured in perfect geometric lines. Not natural, not random, the same design from the structure, but larger, far larger, and active. A low hum vibrated through the ground beneath my boots. And then I saw it. A vertical opening in the ice. A passage. lit from within, waiting. I stood there for a long time. Not because I was afraid. Because I finally understood something I didn't want to admit. I was never surviving Antarctica. I was being rewritten by it. Day 365. If anyone ever finds this record, know this. I don't think the apocalypse ended. I think it evolved. And I think Antarctica was never the edge of the world. It was the beginning of something underneath it. I'm going down now. Not because I want to. But because I already stopped being the one who gets to decide that. And if I don't come back, then I was never meant to. And that's how I survived 365 days in Antarctica during the apocalypse. Or at least, that's how it started. If you're hearing this, it means the record made it out. Which also means I didn't come back the same way I left. Maybe I came back at all. People always think survival is about strength. About fighting storms, enduring cold, outlasting hunger. But I learned something different. Survival is about what you become when there's nothing left to hold on to. Out there, in the endless ice, I didn't just face isolation. I faced something that watched me back. Something that didn't want to kill me. Something that wanted to understand me. And maybe, replace me. If there's one thing I want you to remember, it's this. The world doesn't always end with fire or war. Sometimes it ends quietly, under ice, under silence, under something that was already waiting. I don't know if anyone else is still out there. I don't know if outside even means anything anymore. But if you ever find yourself alone, truly alone, and you hear something where there shouldn't be anything, don't answer it, because sometimes the silence is the only thing keeping you human.